Hey guys, welcome back. So now man, I've been waiting for a while to get into this Wraith talk. And from what I can remember, it's pretty much from when Donny Cates took over Guardians of the Galaxy and Wraith's history was all of a sudden tied to Knull. And ever since I've been waiting for like the full explanation. And it's here now, man, it felt like forever, but let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so before we get into Web of Venom, I want to talk about a bit of the background on Wraith, which we got a lot of during 2007's Annihilation Conquest, to where in the tie-ins we got his origin, which showed his motivations leading to his involvement within Annihilation Conquest. And so now years prior to when he had got the name Wraith from Ronan the Accuser, he was the child of a Kree scientist, Simdel, and that's Simdel, like S-I-M, not Sindel. Just want to avoid any confusion there. But his father Simdel had created a power source that could bring light to an entire galaxy. But nonetheless, with doing this, the Kree, they had banned his innovation. And that's when Simdel took his family to a deserted planetoid near the Benazar Rift. And with doing this, his plan was to take this barren place and change it into a paradise to where he could share this technology with as many people across the universe as he could who would need it. But when the Kree had found out that he continued to use and share this technology, they had sent a group of assassins to take him out, and when this happened, Simdel and his wife hid their son, Zoc Deel, so that he wouldn't be slaughtered as well. And with doing so, they made preparations for him to be sent off the planetoid, but not before watching his parents being killed by the Kree assassins. But then after this, Zoc Deel, his ship didn't exactly land in Kansas, but instead it drifted into esoteric latitude to where it was intercepted by an ancient Kree group who are called the Nameless. And these are like your ancient Kree explorers from like thousands of years ago, who had also traveled into esoteric latitude to where they bonded with the Exolon, which at this time were only known as dark parasitic entities which fed on souls. And when the Nameless intercepted Zoc Deel, they pierced his heart, the Exolon then imprisoned his soul, and from then his body was covered with the Exolon black membrane, which then bonded him with the Exolon, and from there advancing his strength, healing, and giving him immortality. And so now usually for the Nameless, like the departure of their soul, which was feeding the Exolon, this would also take away from them their memories. And the only way that the Nameless could remember who they were was through self-inflicted pain, to where with doing so, it would give them flashbacks of their former life as Kree. But there was something different about Zoc Deel, because after being converted, he still remembered the death of his parents. And with him still having this connection to the last piece of his soul, he then turned on the Nameless, killed their leader, he took their weapons and one of their transports, and from there he then left the esoteric latitude in a pursuit to find the assassins who killed his parents. To where at the time, all he remembered was one of them wearing a ring that had a signet of a skull coming out of a hole. But after descending from the esoteric latitude, he had fell straight into the Annihilation Conquest, which at the time was the Phalanx invading the Kree, to whom prior to this point the Phalanx, they had been conquered by Ultron. And with doing this, Ultron had conquered many of the Kree, using the resources of the Phalanx, who Ultron had used to turn the Kree and a number of others into selects, which was like a version of mind control servants. And really come to think of it, I think the last time we talked about this was when we were going through the life and times of Xemnu, the first Hulk ever, and how like Annihilation Conquest really wasn't his moment. But long story short, it was in this event where we had seen that Wraith, he had some very unique abilities with his connections to the Exolon, because not only could he prohibit himself and free others from becoming a select, but also he could trap Ultron in his own body, which created the opportunity for Ultron to be defeated by Quasar. But fast track from there and going into Donny Cates' Guardians of the Galaxy, which we had started to talk about a while back, and we had got up to like the hunt for Gamora, but it was like exactly when the Black Order had stolen the body of Thanos, to where my attention and focus got sucked into that black hole with the Silver Surfer, and we then went into Silver Surfer Black. But recently I also did a follow-up video talking about the conclusion of Thor the Devourer King, where I get into the possibilities of Thanos Wins Part 2, and I also get into much of the filler information of what happened in Guardians of the Galaxy after the Surfer and a number of the heroes got sucked away, so I won't get back into that here. But after the Surfer and the heroes fell into the black hole, while Eros led this hunt for Gamora, there was a split between the remaining Guardians of the Galaxy who wanted to protect her and Eros who wanted to kill her. And on the side of Eros, we also got the return of Wraith, and this group was called your Dark Guardians of the Galaxy. And for the record, like I'm not sure if it'll be a thing later, but Wraith, he doesn't like Cosmic Ghost Rider, and mainly because his skull reminds him of the signet on the ring of the assassins who killed his parents. But at this time, with Wraith showing up here and joining with the Dark Guardians of the Galaxy, like first he was just around because everybody was there for the will and testament of Thanos, but he had joined with the Dark Guardians because he had made a deal with Euros, because Euros told him that he can get him more information on Knull, who at this point Wraith believed that those answers would somehow give him true freedom. And I'm telling you, like as soon as they handed over Gamora and Wraith got that information from Euros, like Wraith was out. He's like, let me get that info, I'm out. Yeah. But this is then where the story picks up in the Web of Venom Wraith one-shot, where we find out that the information that he was given by Euros, which had 2 locations and an encryption that he wasn't able to crack. But out of the 2 locations, the first one took him back to that same planetoid, which his father had established to be a paradise, which was now turned into a Kree prison. And when he gets there, he finds like this Kree woman whose child's been killed, and the guards are like beating her and threatening her, like if she doesn't stop resisting, she's next. And you can tell like with him arriving here at his old home that it's very personal for him. And like in my first impression, like it almost felt like a Batman moment until it didn't, because like when he seen these guards, like he just blew all their heads off and didn't even speak a word to him, no explanation, no warning, just bye. But with doing this, he also then gives the woman specific directions on how to make her way to safety, like head to the mountain ridge, keep moving till the sun's high, move till your feet are wet and the wind's on your left. And he tells her because he was born there. And that may be a detail that's changed, because I'm pretty sure back in Annihilation Conquest there were 4 people on that ship when his family arrived to the planetoid, so that may be a new change. But nonetheless, we're shown very quickly that even with this new prison here, Wraith still remembers his father's paradise that the Kree had built on top of, and even to the extent of his father's laboratories, which are still underground. And what we come to find out is that the information that Euros gave him, with this first location, it had led him into one of his father's labs, to where when Wraith arrives there and he looks on the wall, he sees a language and a couple of symbols that he doesn't understand. And so in order to try and remember what this writing means, he then stabs himself, inflicting pain so that he can possibly remember what all this means. And when he does this, he gets a crazy revelation, which is only part of his answer, because as it turns out, the light that his father had created, which could brighten the galaxy, it was actually his father finding a solution to rebel against the darkness that had consumed many of the other Kree before. And I'm not gonna front, like this is a crazy twist, because even though at this point Wraith doesn't fully understand what he's looking at, but just to see in his father's laboratory, like for it to have notes on Knull, which now makes like everything that we've seen back in 2007 connect with Knull and later the King in Black, like that's insane. But it doesn't stop there, because he has one more trip left in the teleporter, which in addition to the information he was given by Euros, the teleporter he wasn't given, he stole that. And with that, he doesn't have too many trips that he can make. But on the second trip for the second location, this then takes him to Clintar. And immediately when he arrives there, he can tell that his Exolon membrane is related to the planet of the symbiotes. And when he goes down on the planet, the Exolon and the symbiotes, they're communicating back and forth, but the pain and the memories that he's seeing, they're not his, but rather they're Eddie Brock. And these are likely much of the pain and memories from Eddie Brock from the beginning of Venom Volume 4, leading up through Absolute Carnage. And as far as the time that Wraith is arriving here, if I had to guess, I would say it was right after Sleeper had left Clintar, but more specifically towards the conclusion of Absolute Carnage, because it's while Wraith is here when the symbiote prison is broken and Knull is made free. And prior to this point, we've only seen Knull made free and make his way to Earth, but this gives us a little more, like just before that, because as soon as Knull is made free, Wraith demands that Knull acknowledges him. And when Knull sees him, he's kind of like, okay, yeah, you feel familiar, but I don't know exactly who you are. And Wraith tells him like, of course you do. You're the Exolon god Knull, you've been feeding off my soul, you infected me in the esoteric latitude. And as soon as Wraith mentions esoteric latitude, Knull's kind of like, oh, okay, that rings a bell. But in the case of Knull, like the Exolon and the Nameless, they're just one of many failed experiments we talked about before in the Venom playlist, to where Knull was just trying out different things with symbiotes, and if they didn't work for him, he just casted them to the side. And he lets Wraith know, like, this whole thing, this curse that you say that you got in this history of the Nameless, like to sum it all up, you were born from my trash. And I mean, man, no, you could have put it a little nicer. But then again, with being locked in a symbiote prison for a number of millennia, you ain't got the best people skills, so I let it go. But it's also here where Wraith sees the opportunity to just kill Knull, free himself from this curse, and just go on about his business. But little did he know that Knull is pretty spry for a dude who's been asleep since the beginning of time. And the speed of which Knull moves at is hauntingly satisfying. I don't know why, but it also makes sense because this dude, he could keep up with the Silver Surfer, so there's that. But after dodging that blast, he then strips the Exolon membrane from Wraith's body, leaving Wraith powerless and in his birthday suit. But also with doing this, Knull then absorbs the Exolon into the Necro Sword, likely meaning that he has now found value into something at one point he had considered to be garbage. And I mean, he probably still thinks the same of Wraith, but as far as the Exolon, now with him not discarding them and absorbing them into the Necro Sword, I can imagine that this is something we would see return in the King in Black, or even in the next Marvel Zombies, or even Thanos Wins Part 2 if that's a thing. But it's also here we got a couple of things that I really appreciated, because one, with Wraith being separated from the Exolon and made free, presumably having his soul back, because for one, it shows us Knull getting back to where we had seen him before, making his way to Earth. But before he does, after he strips Wraith of his immortality and the Exolon membrane, he gives Wraith the Spartan 300 Captain America hold forward and triangle kick into space. And then he just goes about his business like that was nobody. But brilliantly, like Donny Cates, man, like, because here when we follow Wraith, it's very much delivered just like how we had got the origin of Knull. Because as Wraith drifts in the darkness, he sees this bright light, which takes on a shape that he had seen in his father's lab, and it's here that he recognizes that this is the light that his father had sought out. But it's also here where the light calls his name and it shines through him, almost like a loud singing choir, but with a faint rumbling of the void screaming far underneath. And after that, it passes through and like a ghost, it's gone. But after this, Wraith notices that he has one more trip left, and at this point he wants to use it to try to make his way to Eddie Brock. And he realizes that it's a risky trip with his condition and the distance that it is, but he takes the risk anyway because he feels like he has to let Eddie know what he had just saw. And at this point back on Earth, Eddie's with Dylan, but when he sees this dude just appear out of nowhere, like initially he's on the defensive, but the Venom symbiote tells Eddie that this guy feels familiar and more or less just relax and hear him out. And it isn't long before Wraith starts to dissolve from a solid form, but before he does, he tells Eddie that it's coming for you. And at first Eddie's like, who, Knull? Yeah, I know. But Wraith tells him no, there is another. Knull has a shadow, there is an opposite, who is a god of light. And when he says that, Wraith just disappears like into this dust, leaving nothing but that same symbol of that light on the ground in the place where he stood. And like, as crazy as it seems like with this god of light thing, and it could be a reference to the one above all, it could be a reference to the light that the Surfer used in Silver Surfer Black, but whoever it is and whatever it may be, it makes sense that there would be an opposite to Knull somewhere out there. And so now real quick, I just want to give a shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know all your thoughts and theories down in the comments below, and let me know if you want to go back and do some more Wraith talk as well too, because we definitely skipped a lot of Annihilation stuff concerning Wraith at least. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.